Jake's hands grip the steering wheel so tight his knuckles have gone white, and he's not even sure why he's pulling over. The rain hammers against his windshield like bullets, each drop exploding in a burst that makes the world outside look like it's dissolving. He should keep driving. Should get home to Emma before the storm gets worse. Should mind his own damn business like he's been doing for the past 3 years. But there she is. Standing under the broken bus stop shelter that's about as useful as a paper umbrella, her scrubs soaked through and clinging to her frame. Even through the rain-distorted glass, he can see her shivering. Her dark hair is plastered to her skull, and she's got her arms wrapped around herself like she's trying to hold her own pieces together. Nurse. The realization hits him harder than it should. The royal blue scrubs, the white sneakers that are probably ruined now, the ID badge swinging from her neck. His chest tightens with a familiar ache that has nothing to do with the weather. Daddy, why are we stopping? Emma's voice cuts through his spiral, and he glances in the rearview mirror at his 6-year-old daughter. She's got her face pressed against the window, her breath fogging the glass as she peers out at the woman. There's someone who needs help, sweetheart. The words come out before he can stop them, before he can think about all the reasons why picking up strangers is a terrible idea, especially when you have a kid in the car. But something about the way the woman stands there, not frantically waving for help, not looking desperate or demanding, just enduring whatever life is throwing at her with a quiet dignity that reminds him of someone he spent 3 years trying to forget. He rolls down the passenger window, and the rain immediately starts pelting the interior of his truck. Hey, he calls out. She turns toward him, and the impact of her face nearly stops his heart. Not because she's beautiful, though she is in that raw, unguarded way that comes from being caught in life's storms, but because of her eyes. Dark brown and filled with something that looks like recognition, like she knows exactly who he is even though he's never seen her before in his life. Welcome back to the channel, my sweet and loyal family. Hit subscribe if you're hooked in and ready to enjoy this story, because tomorrow, I have another beautiful story to share with you and I don't want you to miss it for anything. Now, let's continue. She hesitates for just a moment, and he can practically see her running through the same mental checklist he just did. Stranger danger. Could be a serial killer. Could be worse. But then another crack of thunder splits the sky, and she's moving toward the truck with quick, purposeful steps that tell him she's made her choice. Thank you, she says as she slides into the passenger seat, her voice barely audible over the drumming rain. I'm Nina. Jake. He reaches behind the seat and grabs an old flannel shirt, hands it to her. This might help. Their fingers brush as she takes the shirt, and he feels something electric pass between them. She must feel it too because she pulls her hand back quickly, clutching the flannel like a lifeline. Hi there, she says to Emma, twisting around to smile at his daughter. I love your backpack. Is that Moana? Emma lights up instantly. Aha. She's brave like me. Daddy says I'm the bravest girl in Connecticut. Connecticut. Jake's stomach drops as he realizes he's just given away their location to a complete stranger. But Nina just nods seriously, like Emma has shared the most important information in the world. I can tell, she says. Brave girls have a special sparkle in their eyes, and you've definitely got it. Emma giggles, and the sound does something to Jake's chest that he's not prepared for. It's been months since Emma laughed like that. Really laughed, not the polite little chuckle she gives him when he tries too hard to be funny. Where can I drop you, he asks, putting the truck in drive. Nina is quiet for so long he wonders if she heard him. When he glances over, she's staring out the passenger window, her reflection ghost-like in the rain-streaked glass. Anywhere is fine, she finally says. I mean wherever is convenient for you. There's something about the way she says it that makes his protective instincts flare. It's the same tone Emma uses when she's trying not to be a bother, trying not to ask for too much because she's afraid of being disappointed. That's not an answer, he says gently. Where do you live? Where do you work? She starts to say something, then stops. Her fingers are worrying the hem of his flannel shirt, and he notices her hands are shaking. I work at Hartford General. But I'm not. I don't need to go there right now. Hartford General. The name hits him like a physical blow, and he has to force himself to keep breathing normally. Of course she works there. Of course the universe would be cruel enough to drop a nurse from Hartford General right into his path on the worst storm day of the year. You okay? Nina's voice is soft, concerned, and when he looks at her, those dark eyes are studying his face with professional intensity. Fine, he lies. Just concentrating on the road. But she doesn't look convinced. She looks like she's about to say something else when Emma pipes up from the back seat. Daddy gets sad sometimes when people talk about hospitals. That's where Mommy went to heaven. The silence that follows is deafening. Jake's hands tighten on the steering wheel again, and he can feel Nina's eyes on him, feel the weight of whatever she's thinking pressing against the space between them. I'm sorry, Nina whispers, and there's something in her voice, something that sounds like more than just polite sympathy. It sounds like guilt. Don't be, Jake says quickly. It was a long time ago. Another lie. 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days isn't long at all. But he's not about to unpack his grief with a stranger, even one who smells like rain and vanilla and something else he can't identify. Something that makes him want to pull over again, but for entirely different reasons. The GPS announces their next turn, and he realizes he's been driving on autopilot toward home. He should ask Nina again where she needs to go. Should stop being such a creep and taking her to his house without permission. But when he opens his mouth to ask, she beats him to it. I should probably tell you, she says, her voice barely above a whisper, I don't have anywhere to go tonight. The admission hangs in the air between them like a confession, and Jake feels something shift in his chest. Something dangerous and protective and completely inappropriate given that he's known this woman for all of 15 minutes. What are you hiding, Nina? The question burns in his throat, but he doesn't ask it. Instead, he makes a decision that his rational mind is already screaming at him for. Well, he says, I guess it's a good thing I picked you up then. What do you think Jake should do? Would you trust a stranger in a storm, or is he making a dangerous mistake? Drop a comment below and let me know what you'd do in his situation. Jake's house sits at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac, the kind of neighborhood where people still wave to each other and kids leave their bikes in the front yard. Through the rain, Nina can make out the warm glow of porch lights reflecting off wet pavement, the comfortable sprawl of colonial homes with their perfectly maintained lawns and 2-car garages. It's exactly the kind of life she used to dream about having someday. Home sweet home, Jake says, pulling into the driveway of a blue house with white shutters and a wraparound porch that looks like it belongs in a magazine. Even through the storm, she can see the swing hanging from the porch ceiling, the potted plants that someone, probably Jake, has been carefully tending. It's beautiful, she whispers, and means it. Daddy built my treehouse. Emma announces, pointing toward the backyard where Nina can just make out the outline of what looks like a miniature castle nestled in the branches of an old oak tree. You built that. Nina turns to look at Jake, and catches him watching her with an expression she can't quite read. There's something vulnerable in his eyes, like he's waiting for her judgment and hoping she won't find him lacking. I'm a contractor, he says, almost apologetically. Used to be, anyway. I work mostly from home now so I can be with Emma. Used to be. The words carry weight, and Nina wonders what changed. When his wife died, probably. When his whole world shifted and he had to rebuild everything around the small person in the back seat who needed him to be both mother and father. The rain is still coming down in sheets, and Jake cuts the engine with a sigh. Ready to make a run for it? I'll get soaked, Nina says, looking down at his flannel shirt that she's still clutching. I don't want to ruin your house. It's just water, Jake says, but there's something in his voice that tells her he's not just talking about the rain. And houses are meant to be lived in. Before she can respond, he's out of the truck and running around to her side, yanking open the door with one hand while shielding her from the worst of the downpour with his body. He's close enough that she can smell his cologne mixed with sawdust and something distinctly masculine that makes her stomach flutter in ways it hasn't in months. Come on, he says, his voice rough against her ear. I've got you. Those 3 words hit her harder than they should. When was the last time someone said that to her and meant it? When was the last time someone offered to protect her from something as simple as getting wet? She lets him help her out of the truck, his hand warm and calloused against hers, and for a moment they're standing so close she can see the gold flecks in his brown eyes. Can see the way his dark hair is already starting to curl from the humidity. Can see the exact moment when his gaze drops to her lips and his breath catches. Daddy. Nina. Come on. Emma's voice breaks the spell, and they spring apart like they've been caught doing something inappropriate instead of just looking at each other. The dash to the front door is a blur of rain and laughter. Emma shrieking with delight as she splashes through puddles, Jake fumbling with his keys while trying to keep Nina dry, Nina trying not to think about how natural this feels. How much like a family they look. Don't. The warning echoes in her head as Jake finally gets the door open and ushers them inside. Don't get attached. Don't start dreaming. Don't forget why you're really here. But it's hard to remember her mission when she steps into Jake's house and feels like she's walked into a home. Not just a house, a real home, with Emma's artwork covering the refrigerator and family photos lining the hallway and the lingering scent of whatever they had for dinner. It's warm and lived in, and everything Nina has been pretending she doesn't want for the past 2 years. Let me grab you some dry clothes, Jake says, his voice slightly hoarse. Emma, can you show Nina where the guest bathroom is? This way. Emma grabs Nina's hand with the confidence of a child who's never met a stranger she didn't like. Daddy keeps extra clothes in the closet for when people sleep over. But nobody ever sleeps over except Grandma Joan, and she always brings her own pajamas because she says Daddy's clothes make her look like a scarecrow. Nina can't help but smile at the commentary, following Emma down a hallway lined with pictures that make her chest ache. Jake and Emma at the beach, building sandcastles. Jake and Emma at what looks like a school play, Emma dressed as a flower and beaming at the camera. Jake and Emma and a woman with golden hair and kind eyes, all three of them laughing at something off camera. His wife. Nina stops walking, her breath catching as she stares at the photo. The woman is beautiful in an effortless way, the kind of person who probably never had a bad hair day or said the wrong thing at parties. She's looking at Jake like he hung the moon, and he's looking back at her like she's his entire universe. That's Mommy, Emma says matter-of-factly, following Nina's gaze. She died when I was 3, but Daddy says she's still watching over us from heaven. Sometimes I talk to her picture before bed. The casual way Emma delivers this information breaks something in Nina's chest. This little girl has been living with loss for half her life, and she's still so full of light and trust and hope. What kind of person does that make you? The voice in her head sounds suspiciously like her conscience. What kind of person comes into this house, sees this beautiful broken family, and lies to them? She was really pretty, Nina manages to say around the lump in her throat. Daddy says I have her smile, Emma says proudly. But I have his stubborn streak, whatever that means. Nina is saved from having to respond by Jake appearing with an armload of clothes. Sweatpants that will probably be too long for her, a Hartford University t-shirt that's soft from countless washings, and a zip-up hoodie that smells like fabric softener and something uniquely him. These should fit okay, he says, not quite meeting her eyes. Bathroom's right there. Take your time. Their fingers brush again as he hands her the clothes, and this time neither of them pulls away immediately. The moment stretches between them, loaded with possibility and danger and all the things Nina knows she should be running from. But she's not running. She's standing in Jake Morrison's hallway, wearing his shirt and holding his clothes, letting herself imagine what it would be like to belong here. Thank you, she whispers. Don't mention it, he says, but his voice is rough again, and when she finally takes the clothes and heads toward the bathroom, she can feel his eyes following her. The guest bathroom is small but immaculate, with fluffy towels and soap that smells like lavender. Nina catches a glimpse of herself in the mirror and winces. Her hair is a disaster, her scrubs are soaked through, and her mascara has created dark circles under her eyes that make her look like she's been in a fight. You have been in a fight, she reminds herself as she peels off her wet clothes. You've been fighting for 2 years to get to this moment. But as she pulls on Jake's sweatpants and his t-shirt, both of which smell like him and make her feel oddly safe, she can't shake the feeling that she's about to lose a battle she didn't even know she was fighting. When she emerges from the bathroom, she follows the sound of voices to the kitchen, where Jake is stirring something on the stove while Emma sits at the counter, swinging her legs and chattering about her day at school. And then Tyler Morrison, not the cute Tyler, the one with the gross sneakers, said the girls can't be astronauts, so I told him about Sally Ride and Mae Jemison and Katherine Johnson, and Mrs. Peterson said I was absolutely right and Tyler had to apologize. That's my girl, Jake says, grinning at his daughter with obvious pride. Never let anyone tell you what you can't do. It's such a simple moment, father and daughter in their kitchen, comfortable with each other, building the kind of memories that last a lifetime. But watching them together makes Nina's chest ache with a longing so sharp it takes her breath away. This is what she's been missing. This is what she's been searching for without even knowing it. Not just love, but belonging. Not just romance, but family. And she's about to destroy it all. Feeling better? Jake asks, looking up from the stove. His eyes widen slightly when he sees her in his clothes, and she watches his Adam's apple bob as he swallows hard. Much thank you. She wraps the hoodie tighter around herself, suddenly self-conscious. What are you making? It smells amazing. Chicken soup, Emma announces. Daddy makes the best chicken soup in the whole world. He learned from Mommy before she got sick. Nina's stomach drops. Sick. Jake's expression shudders, and he turns back to the stove. Cancer, he says quietly. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia. She fought for 8 months. 8 months. Nina's hands start to shake, and she has to grip the counter to keep from falling over. 8 months of treatment at Hartford General. 8 months of hope and fear and desperate prayers that went unanswered. 8 months of Nina taking care of other patients, while Jake's wife was fighting for her life just down the hall. I'm sorry, she whispers, because it's all she can say. Because the truth that she was there, that she might have seen his wife, that she's been carrying a secret that could destroy him, is locked in her throat like a scream. It's okay, Jake says, but it's clearly not okay. She was the strongest person I ever knew. She made me promise to take care of Emma, to make sure she had a good life. Some days I'm not sure I'm doing a very good job of keeping that promise. The raw honesty in his voice nearly undoes her. Without thinking, she moves closer to him, close enough to see the pain etched in the lines around his eyes. From what I can see, she says softly, you're doing an incredible job. Emma is lucky to have you. He turns to look at her, and the intensity in his gaze makes her feel like she's standing too close to a fire. You don't know me. I know enough, she says, and realizes she means it. In the space of a few hours, she's seen him be kind to a stranger, patient with his daughter, vulnerable about his grief. She's seen him make chicken soup from scratch and build treehouses and create a home that radiates love despite the loss that shadows it. She knows enough to know she's falling for him. And she knows enough to know that when he finds out who she really is, it's going to destroy them both. Nina. Emma's voice cuts through the tension. Are you gonna stay for dinner? Please? It's been forever since we had company, and Daddy never talks to grown-ups except for work people and grocery store people, and they don't count. Emma, Jake says, his cheeks flushing. Nina doesn't have to. I'd love to stay for dinner, Nina hears herself saying. If that's okay with you. Jake stares at her for a long moment, and she can practically see him weighing the wisdom of letting a stranger deeper into his life. But then Emma whoops with delight, and something in his expression softens. Yeah, he says quietly. That's okay with me. As they sit around Jake's kitchen table, sharing soup and stories while the storm rages outside, Nina tries to memorize every detail. The way Emma tells elaborate stories about her classmates. The way Jake listens to his daughter like she's the most important person in the world. The way the light from the overhead fixture casts golden shadows across both their faces. She tries to memorize it because she knows it can't last. Tomorrow or next week, or whenever Jake finds out the truth about why she's really here, this perfect moment will be nothing but a memory. But for now, sitting in this warm kitchen with this beautiful broken family, Nina lets herself pretend she belongs here. Lets herself imagine what it would be like to be part of something this good. And tries not to think about the secret that's going to tear it all apart. Have you ever had to keep a secret that could hurt the people you love? What would you do in Nina's position? Tell the truth and risk everything, or keep quiet and live with the guilt? Share your thoughts in the comments below. By the time they finish dinner, the storm has settled into a steady drumming against the windows, and Emma is fighting to keep her eyes open. She's curled up on the couch between Jake and Nina, her head heavy against Nina's shoulder, while some Disney movie plays softly on the television. She never falls asleep during movies, Jake whispers, his voice barely audible over the soundtrack. Usually she's bouncing off the walls until at least 9. Nina looks down at Emma's peaceful face, at the way her small hand has somehow found its way into Nina's, and feels something crack open in her chest. Maybe she feels safe. The words slip out before she can stop them, and when she looks up, Jake is staring at her with an expression that makes her breath catch. There's something raw in his eyes, something that looks like recognition and longing and fear all tangled together. Maybe she's not the only one, he says quietly. The admission hangs between them like a bridge neither of them is sure they should cross. Nina can feel her pulse hammering in her throat, can feel the weight of all the things she should say and all the things she wants to say pressing against her ribs. Tell him. The voice in her head is insistent, desperate. Tell him now, before this goes any further. Before you hurt him more than you already have. But Emma chooses that moment to shift in her sleep, burrowing deeper into Nina's side with a contented sigh, and the words die in Nina's throat. How can she shatter this perfect moment? How can she destroy the peace on this little girl's face? I should put her to bed, Jake says, but he doesn't move. None of them do. It's like they're all afraid that moving will break whatever spell has settled over them. In a minute, Nina whispers, her free hand unconsciously stroking Emma's hair. She's so peaceful. Jake watches her with Emma, and something in his expression shifts. Deepens. You're good with her. She's easy to love. The words come out more honest than Nina intended, and she sees Jake's breath catch. When she looks at him, really looks, she can see the exact moment he stops fighting whatever he's been feeling since he picked her up in the rain. Nina, he starts, then stops. Shakes his head. I don't even know your last name. Rodriguez, she says without thinking, then immediately wants to take it back. Because it's the truth, and the truth is dangerous when you're living a lie. Nina Rodriguez. He says it like he's testing how it sounds, and the way her name falls from his lips makes her stomach flip. Are you from around here? Lie. The smart thing would be to lie, to create some backstory that keeps her safe and keeps him at a distance. But looking into Jake's eyes, seeing the genuine interest there, the way he's looking at her like she matters, Nina finds herself telling the truth instead. Originally from Texas, she says. San Antonio. But I've been in Connecticut for about 2 years now. What brought you here? The question she's been dreading, wrapped in casual curiosity that makes it somehow worse. Because Jake isn't interrogating her, he's just a man getting to know a woman he's attracted to. He has no idea he's stepping on a landmine. Work, she says, which is technically true. Just not the whole truth. Hartford General. She nods, not trusting her voice. That's a good hospital, Jake says, and there's something in his tone that makes Nina's chest tighten. They took good care of Meredith. At least, as good as anyone could. Meredith. His wife's name, spoken with a tenderness that makes Nina want to curl up and disappear. Because she knows that name. Has seen it written on charts, heard it called over the hospital intercom, carried it with her like a stone in her chest for 2 years. Jake, she starts, but he's already talking, his voice soft and far away. She loved that place, you know? Even when she was sick, even when the treatments were making her miserable, she'd talk about her nurses like they were angels. There was one in particular. He pauses, running his hand through his hair. Mare always said she had the kindest eyes. Said she made her feel less scared. Nina's heart stops. Completely stops. Because she knows exactly which nurse he's talking about. Can picture Meredith Morrison clearly, the golden hair that had thinned from chemo, the brave smile she wore even on her worst days, the way she'd light up whenever Jake and Emma came to visit. The way she'd held Nina's hand during those final moments and whispered, "Take care of them for me." Nina? You okay? Jake's voice sounds like it's coming from underwater. You look like you've seen a ghost. I have, she wants to say. I've been living with her ghost for 2 years. Instead, she forces herself to breathe, to focus on Emma's weight against her shoulder, to anchor herself in the present instead of drowning in the past. Sorry, she manages. Just tired, I guess. It's been a long day. Jake studies her face, and she can see the exact moment he decides not to push. Should I take Emma up to bed? You could. He hesitates. I mean, if you want to stay tonight, you can. The guest room's all yours. It's still storming pretty bad out there. It's an offer wrapped in practical concern, but Nina can hear the hope underneath it. Can see in his eyes that he doesn't want her to leave any more than she wants to go. Are you sure? She asks. I don't want to impose. You're not imposing. Jake's voice is quiet, but there's something definitive in it. Emma likes you. And I. He stops, looks down at his hands. I like having you here. The admission is simple, honest, and it hits Nina like a physical blow. Because she likes being here too. Likes it in a way that terrifies her, in a way that makes her want to stay forever and never face the world outside this warm, safe house. Okay, she whispers. I'll stay. Jake's smile could power the whole neighborhood. Good. That's good. He carefully lifts Emma from the couch, and Nina watches as he carries his daughter upstairs, murmuring soft reassurances when she stirs. There's something achingly tender about the way he moves, the way he holds her like she's made of spun glass and starlight. This is what a good father looks like, Nina thinks. This is what Meredith saw in him. This is why she fought so hard to stay. When Jake comes back downstairs, Nina has moved to the kitchen, where she's attempting to do the dishes as a way to keep her hands busy and her mind from spiraling. "You don't have to do that," Jake says, appearing beside her at the sink. "I want to," Nina says. "It's the least I can do." They work in companionable silence for a few minutes, Jake drying as Nina washes, their bodies unconsciously finding a rhythm that feels like they've done this 1,000 times before. When Jake reaches across her for a dish towel, his chest brushes against her back, and Nina has to close her eyes against the sudden rush of want that courses through her. "Nina," Jake's voice is rough, and when she turns around, he's standing closer than she expected. Close enough that she can see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes, can count the laugh lines at the corners, can feel the heat radiating from his body. "Yeah. I need to tell you something," he says, his hands coming up to frame her face. "And I need you to know that I never do this. I don't bring strangers home. I don't let people get close. Emma and we've got our routine, our safe little world, and I haven't let anyone new into it since Meredith died," Nina finishes softly. "Since Meredith died," he confirms. "But there's something about you. Something that makes me want to take risks I swore I'd never take again." His thumbs trace along her cheekbones, and Nina leans into the touch despite every rational thought screaming at her to pull away. "Jake," she whispers, "you don't know me." "Not really." "I know enough," he says, echoing her words from earlier. "I know you're kind. I know you make Emma laugh. I know you look at my daughter like she matters, and you look at me like..." He pauses, swallows hard. "Like I'm worth something." The raw vulnerability in his voice breaks something loose in Nina's chest, and before she can stop herself, she's reaching up to touch his face, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw. "You are worth something," she says fiercely. "You're worth everything." The kiss happens like gravity, inevitable, inescapable, like they've been falling toward each other since the moment she got in his truck. Jake's lips are soft and desperate against hers, and he tastes like coffee and possibility and everything Nina has been denying herself for 2 years. She melts into him, her hands fisting in his shirt, her body fitting against his like she was made to be there. When he groans softly against her mouth, the sound goes straight through her, igniting something that has nothing to do with physical attraction and everything to do with the way he's holding her, like she's precious, like she's home. They break apart breathing hard, their foreheads pressed together, and Nina can feel Jake's heart hammering against his ribs. "I can't," he whispers, but his hands are still cupping her face, still holding her like he never wants to let go. "I can't get involved with someone and then lose them. I can't do that to Emma. I can't do that to myself." "You won't lose me," Nina says, and the lie tastes like ash in her mouth. Because she knows that's exactly what's going to happen. She knows that tomorrow or next week, or whenever the truth comes out, Jake Morrison is going to hate her with the same intensity that he's looking at her with right now. "Promise me," Jake says, his voice breaking. "Promise me you won't disappear." Nina stares into his eyes, sees the fear there, the hope, the desperate need to believe that good things can last. And even though she knows she shouldn't, even though she knows it's cruel to make a promise she can't keep, she finds herself nodding. "I promise," she whispers. Jake's smile is like sunrise after the longest night, and when he kisses her again, Nina lets herself believe, just for a moment, that promises can be kept and secrets don't have to destroy everything beautiful. But later, lying in Jake's guest bed wearing one of his t-shirts and listening to the storm rage outside, Nina stares at the ceiling and tries to figure out how she's going to keep a promise that was doomed from the moment she made it. Because tomorrow she has to go back to Hartford General. Tomorrow she has to face the colleagues who've been covering for her, the supervisor who's been asking questions, the investigation that brought her to Jake's doorstep in the first place. Tomorrow she has to decide whether keeping her promise to a dead woman is worth destroying the man that woman loved. And as she finally drifts off to sleep, Nina can't shake the feeling that she's already made her choice, and it's going to break everyone's heart, including her own. In the morning, she wakes to the smell of pancakes and the sound of Emma's laughter, and for just a moment, she lets herself pretend this is her life. That she belongs in this house with this family, that the secret burning in her chest is just a bad dream. But when Jake appears in the doorway with coffee and a smile that makes her heart skip, Nina knows she's living on borrowed time. And the clock is ticking faster than she ever imagined. What do you think Nina is really hiding? Is it possible to build something real on a foundation of lies, or is she setting them all up for heartbreak? Let me know your theories in the comments. I love hearing what you think is coming next. 3 weeks later, Nina wakes up in Jake's bed for the first time, and the morning light streaming through his bedroom windows feels like a blessing. She's been staying in the guest room, maintaining the pretense of propriety even as she and Jake have been growing closer every day. But last night, after Emma fell asleep and they were watching an old movie on the couch, something shifted. "Stay with me tonight," Jake had whispered against her hair, his voice rough with want and vulnerability. "I mean, just to sleep. I want to wake up next to you." And Nina, who has been fighting her feelings for 3 weeks, who has been trying to maintain some kind of emotional distance even as her heart has been free-falling, finally stopped fighting. Now, lying in Jake's arms as he sleeps, she can't remember why she was ever hesitant. His breathing is deep and even against her neck, his arm heavy and warm around her waist, and she feels safer than she has in years. More herself than she's ever been. This is what home feels like, she thinks, and the realization should terrify her. Instead, it fills her with a golden warmth that starts in her chest and spreads through her whole body. "Morning," Jake murmurs, his voice husky with sleep, and she feels him smile against her shoulder before pressing a soft kiss there. "Morning," she whispers back, turning in his arms to face him. His hair is sticking up in about 6 different directions, and there's a pillow crease running down his left cheek, and he's never looked more beautiful to her. "Sleep okay?" he asks, his thumb tracing patterns on her bare arm. "Better than I have in months," she admits, and sees something light up in his eyes. "Good," he says, leaning down to kiss her forehead. "Because I was thinking maybe we could make this a regular thing." The casual way he says it, like they're discussing weekend plans instead of fundamentally changing their relationship, makes Nina's heart skip. "Oh really? Really?" Jake's voice is soft, but there's something serious in his expression. "Nina, these past few weeks. I haven't felt this happy since before Meredith got sick. And Emma, God, Emma lights up whenever you're around. It's like you've brought color back into our lives." The mention of Meredith sends a familiar spike of guilt through Nina's chest, but she pushes it down. She's gotten good at pushing down the guilt, at focusing on the present instead of dwelling on the past she can't change. "You've brought color into mine too," she says, and means it. The past 3 weeks have been like living in a dream, helping Emma with homework, cooking dinner with Jake, falling asleep to the sound of his breathing. She started keeping a toothbrush in his bathroom, started leaving clothes in his dresser drawer, started planning her days around school pickup times and bedtime stories. She started living instead of just surviving. "Daddy." "Nina." Emma's voice carries down the hallway, followed by the sound of small feet running toward Jake's bedroom. "Are you guys awake? I made breakfast." Jake and Nina spring apart like teenagers caught by their parents, both of them laughing as they scramble to look decent. Jake throws on a t-shirt while Nina wraps herself in one of his hoodies, and they're both still grinning when Emma bursts through the door. "I made cereal," Emma announces proudly, holding up a bowl that's definitely more milk than cereal. "And I didn't spill anything on the floor this time." "That's amazing, sweetheart," Jake says, scooping Emma up for a hug. "Did you make enough for Nina too?" "Of course." Emma beams at Nina. "I used the good bowls and everything." As they head downstairs together, Jake carrying Emma, Nina's hand warm in his free one, Nina can't help but marvel at how natural this feels. How right. 3 weeks ago, she was a stranger in their lives, and now she can't imagine being anywhere else. The kitchen is indeed a disaster zone, with cereal scattered across the counter and what looks like half a gallon of milk puddled on the floor, but Emma is so proud of her effort that neither Jake nor Nina has the heart to do anything but praise her initiative. "This is delicious," Nina says solemnly, taking a bite of soggy Cheerios. "Best breakfast ever." Emma practically glows with pride, and Jake catches Nina's eye over their daughter's head. Their daughter. The thought slips into Nina's mind unbidden, and she's surprised by how right it feels. "So," Jake says, sitting down at the table with his own bowl of cereal, "I was thinking maybe we could do something fun today. It's Saturday, the weather's nice. Can we go to the park?" Emma asks, bouncing in her chair. "The one with the big slide and the swings that go really high." "If Nina wants to," Jake says, and there's something in his voice that makes Nina look at him more closely. He's nervous, she realizes. Actually nervous about asking her to spend the day with them. I would love to go to the park, Nina says, and watches Jake's entire face light up. Yes. Emma cheers, jumping up from her chair. Can we have a picnic too? And can Nina push me on the swings? She pushes higher than you do, Daddy. Hey. Jake protests, but he's laughing. I'll have you know I'm an excellent swing pusher. Nina's better, Emma says matter-of-factly, then runs off to get dressed, leaving Jake and Nina alone at the kitchen table. She's not wrong, Nina says teasingly. I do have superior swing-pushing technique. Oh really? Jake's eyes are sparkling with mischief. And where exactly did you develop these superior skills? Years of practice, Nina says mysteriously, and Jake laughs, reaching across the table to take her hand. I love seeing you like this, he says softly. Happy. Relaxed. Like you belong here. I feel like I belong here, Nina admits, and the honesty in her own voice surprises her. Because it's true. Despite everything, despite the lies, despite the secret that sits in her chest like a stone, she does feel like she belongs here. The day at the park is everything Nina could have dreamed of. They spread a blanket under an old oak tree and eat sandwiches while Emma regales them with elaborate stories about her classmates. Jake pushes Emma on the swings while Nina cheers from the sidelines, and then Nina takes a turn while Jake captures the moment on his phone. For the family album, he says, and the casual way he includes her in that category makes Nina's chest tight with emotion. Later, when Emma is occupied with a group of kids on the playground, Jake and Nina find themselves alone on the blanket, lying on their backs and watching clouds drift across the blue sky. I have something to tell you, Jake says, and Nina's heart stops for a moment before she realizes he's smiling. What? I've been thinking about asking you to move in with us. Officially, I mean. Nina sits up so fast she gets dizzy. What? Jake sits up too, suddenly looking uncertain. I know it's fast, and I know we haven't talked about the future or anything. But Nina, these past 3 weeks have been the happiest I've been in years. Emma adores you and I. He pauses, runs his hand through his hair. I'm falling in love with you. The words hit Nina like a physical blow, and for a moment she can't breathe. Because he's falling in love with her, and she's already completely gone for him, and none of it matters because she's built their entire relationship on a lie. Jake, she starts, but he's already talking, the words spilling out of him like he's been holding them back for weeks. I know it's crazy. I know we haven't known each other that long. But sometimes you just know, right? Sometimes you meet someone and it's like coming home. Coming home. The phrase echoes in Nina's mind, and she thinks about the past 3 weeks, waking up in Jake's house, cooking dinner in his kitchen, reading bedtime stories to Emma, falling asleep to the sound of his breathing. It is like coming home. It's like finding a piece of herself she didn't even know was missing. I love you too, she whispers, and watches Jake's face transform with joy. Yeah. And it's true. Whatever else is complicated in her life, whatever secret she's carrying, this is the simplest truth she knows. She loves Jake Morrison. She loves his daughter. She loves the life they've built together, even if it's built on a foundation of lies. Jake kisses her then, soft and sweet and full of promise, and Nina lets herself believe, just for a moment, that love is enough. That they can build something real together, something that can survive the truth when it finally comes out. So, Jake says when they break apart, his forehead resting against hers, is that a yes to moving in? Nina looks over at Emma, who's laughing as she goes down the slide, her hair flying behind her like a banner. She looks at Jake, whose eyes are full of hope and love and dreams of a future that includes her. She thinks about the guest room that's already become hers, the toothbrush in the bathroom, the way Emma has started calling her Nina Mom, when she thinks no one is listening. Yes, she says, and Jake's smile could power the whole city. The next 2 weeks pass in a blur of happiness. Nina officially moves her things into Jake's house, and they spend a weekend rearranging furniture and deciding where to put her books. Emma insists on helping with everything, declaring herself the official unpacking supervisor, and taking her job very seriously. This is the best day ever, Emma announces as they're setting up Nina's dresser in Jake's bedroom. Now we're really a family. A family. Nina catches Jake's eye, and she can see the same emotion reflected there that she's feeling, joy and terror and hope all tangled together. They establish routines. Nina starts picking Emma up from school sometimes, and the other mothers begin to recognize her, to include her in their casual conversations about homework and soccer practices. She helps Emma with her science project about butterflies, and they spend hours in the backyard cataloging different species. She teaches Emma how to make her grandmother's enchiladas, and Emma teaches her the complicated rules of the card game she invented. At night, after Emma is asleep, Nina and Jake curl up on the couch and plan their future. They talk about taking Emma to Disney World next summer, about maybe getting a dog, about whether they want to renovate the kitchen or just learn to live with the slightly crooked cabinet doors. They don't talk about marriage, but it hangs in the air between them like a promise. Nina catches Jake looking at rings on his laptop one evening, and he catches her researching schools in the area, and they both pretend not to notice. "I want to meet your family," Jake says one night as they're lying in bed, Nina's head on his chest. "Your parents, your siblings. I want to know everything about you." Nina's stomach clenches. "My family's complicated." "All families are complicated," Jake says easily. "But they're your family. They're part of you." "They're not the complicated part," Nina thinks. "I'm the complicated part." "Maybe someday," she says, and feels Jake nod against her hair. "No pressure," he says. I want to know all of you. The good stuff and the messy stuff and everything in between." "If you knew all of me, you'd hate me," Nina thinks, but she doesn't say it. Instead, she kisses his chest and changes the subject, and Jake lets her. But the guilt is getting harder to ignore. It sits in her stomach like a lead weight, making it hard to eat, hard to sleep, hard to fully enjoy the happiness that surrounds her. She finds herself staring at the photo of Meredith in the hallway, wondering what Jake's wife would think of her presence in their home, in their lives. "Take care of them for me," Meredith had whispered during those final moments, and Nina had promised. But is this what Meredith meant? Is this taking care of them, or is this stealing something that was never meant to be hers? The breaking point comes on a Tuesday afternoon. Nina is at Hartford General for her shift, trying to focus on her patients instead of the investigation that's still ongoing, when Dr. Martinez pulls her aside. "Nina, we need to talk," he says, his voice serious. "There's been a development in the Morrison case." Nina's blood turns to ice. What kind of development? The family's attorney has been asking questions. About the night Mrs. Morrison died, about the medication error, about who was responsible. Dr. Martinez looks at her with concern. "I've been able to keep your name out of it so far, but I don't know how much longer I can protect you." The medication error. The words echo in Nina's mind as she drives home to Jake's house, her hands shaking on the steering wheel. The mistake that cost Meredith Morrison her life. The mistake that Nina has been carrying like a stone in her chest for 2 years. The mistake that Jake doesn't know about. When she walks through the front door, she finds Jake and Emma in the kitchen, working on homework together. Emma is struggling with a math problem, and Jake is patiently explaining fractions, his voice gentle and encouraging. "Nina." Emma jumps up to hug her. "Daddy's helping me with math, but I think I need a snack break. Can we make cookies?" "Of course," Nina says automatically, but her voice sounds strange to her own ears. Jake looks up from the math worksheet, and she can see the exact moment he notices something's wrong. "Hey, you okay?" "Fine," Nina lies, forcing a smile. "Just tired." But she's not fine. She's falling apart, piece by piece, and she doesn't know how to stop it. That night, after Emma is asleep, Jake tries to talk to her about what's wrong, but Nina deflects, claiming work stress and exhaustion. Jake accepts her explanation, but she can see the worry in his eyes. "Whatever it is," he says, pulling her into his arms, "we'll figure it out together." That's what families do. Families. The word breaks something loose in Nina's chest, and she has to bite her lip to keep from crying. Because they are a family now, the 3 of them. They're planning futures and making memories and building something beautiful together. And it's all going to come crashing down the moment Jake learns the truth. As she lies awake that night, listening to Jake's steady breathing, Nina knows she's running out of time. The investigation is closing in, and Jake's attorney is asking questions, and sooner or later, the truth is going to come out. She has to decide, tell Jake herself and hope their love is strong enough to survive the truth, or wait for him to find out and lose him forever. But as she watches him sleep, his face peaceful and trusting, Nina realizes she's already made her choice. She's going to keep fighting for this happiness, for this family, for this love that feels like the best thing that's ever happened to her. Even if it destroys them all in the end. The next morning, Jake wakes her with coffee and kisses, and Emma bounds into their room with a drawing she made of the three of them at the park. "Look," Emma says proudly. "It's our family." In the drawing, they're all holding hands and smiling, with a big yellow sun shining down on them and hearts floating in the air around them. It's the kind of picture that belongs on a refrigerator, that gets saved in baby books and pulled out years later to make people smile. It's perfect. And as Jake hangs the drawing on the refrigerator with ceremonial importance, and Emma chatters about her plans for the day, and the morning sun streams through the kitchen windows, Nina lets herself believe that perfect moments can last forever. She's wrong, of course. But for now, in this golden moment, with her family around her and love filling every corner of the house, Nina allows herself to hope. Do you think Nina should tell Jake the truth about her connection to Meredith's death, or is she right to protect their happiness for as long as possible? What would you do if you were in her position? Share your thoughts below. I'm curious to see if you think love can really conquer all. The call comes on a Friday evening while they're making pizza together in the kitchen. Emma is standing on a chair at the counter, her small hands covered in flour as she attempts to toss pizza dough like she's seen on cooking shows. Jake is laughing as he helps guide her movements, and Nina is grating cheese, watching them with a heart so full it feels like it might burst. This is their life now. This beautiful, ordinary, perfect life. Jake's phone buzzes on the counter, and he glances at it with mild annoyance. "It's probably work," he says to Nina. "Let me just." But when he sees the caller ID, his expression changes. The laughter dies in his eyes, replaced by something harder, more focused. "It's my attorney," he tells Nina quietly. "About Meredith's case. I should take this." Nina's blood turns to ice, but she forces herself to keep grating cheese, to keep breathing normally. "Of course. Emma and I can finish the pizza." Jake steps into the hallway to take the call, and Nina tries to focus on Emma's chatter about pizza toppings and whether pepperoni counts as a vegetable if it's round like tomatoes. But her ears are straining to catch pieces of Jake's conversation, and what she hears makes her stomach drop. "What do you mean there's been a development?" "Yes, I can come in Monday to discuss it." "A nurse." "Wait, what was the name again?" The cheese grater slips from Nina's suddenly numb fingers, clattering to the floor with a sound that seems to echo through the entire house. Emma looks up from her pizza dough, concerned. "Nina? You okay?" "Fine, sweetheart," Nina manages, bending to pick up the grater with hands that are shaking so badly she can barely grip it. "Just clumsy." But she's not fine. She's drowning, watching her perfect world begin to crack at the edges as Jake's voice carries down the hallway. "Rodriguez. Nina Rodriguez. No, that can't be right." The silence that follows is so complete that Nina can hear her own heartbeat hammering in her ears. She looks at Emma, who's still innocently working on her pizza, unaware that their entire world is about to implode. When Jake appears in the kitchen doorway, his face is white as paper and his phone is clutched in his hand like a weapon. "Emma," he says, his voice carefully controlled, "why don't you go wash your hands so we can finish making dinner?" "But I'm not done with my pizza." Emma protests. "Go wash your hands," Jake repeats, and there's something in his tone that makes Emma's eyes widen. She looks between her father and Nina, sensing the shift in the atmosphere even if she doesn't understand it. "Okay, Daddy," she says quietly, climbing down from her chair and padding out of the kitchen. The moment Emma is gone, Jake's carefully controlled mask crumbles. "Nina Rodriguez," he says, and her name sounds like an accusation on his lips. Nurse at Hartford General. 28 years old. Originally from San Antonio, Texas. Nina opens her mouth to speak, but no words come out. She can only stare at Jake's face as understanding dawns there, as all the pieces click into place. "You were there," he whispers. "The night Meredith died. You were her nurse." It's not a question. It's a statement, delivered with the kind of certainty that comes from having your worst fears confirmed. "Jake, I can explain." "Can you?" His voice is rising now, rough with betrayal and rage. "Can you explain how you failed to administer her medication correctly? How your mistake, your fucking mistake, caused the cardiac event that killed my wife?" The words hit Nina like physical blows, each one landing with devastating accuracy. She's been dreading this moment for weeks, but hearing the truth spoken aloud is somehow worse than she imagined. It wasn't. I didn't mean. She's babbling now, her carefully rehearsed explanations crumbling under the weight of Jake's stare. The dosage was unclear, and I was trying to clarify with the doctor, but what? Jake slams his hand down on the counter, making Nina jump. But you decided to guess? But you figured close enough was good enough when it came to my wife's life. No. The word tears from Nina's throat. I would never. I was trying to help her. I was trying to save her. Save her. Jake's laugh is bitter, broken. You killed her. And then what? What? You felt so guilty that you decided to track down her family. Decided to insert yourself into our lives to what? Ease your conscience. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Nina? Jake's voice drops to a whisper, but it's somehow more terrifying than when he was shouting. Tell me what it was like. Tell me how you ended up in my truck that night. Tell me how you just happened to be standing in the rain right where I would find you. Nina's chest is so tight she can barely breathe. This is it. This is the moment where she loses everything. I was walking, she says weakly. I was upset, and I was walking and... You were walking in my neighborhood, Jake says flatly. In the rain. Without a car. 20 minutes from the hospital where you work. What a fucking coincidence. Each word is a nail in the coffin of their relationship, and Nina can see in Jake's eyes that he's already figured out the truth. That she sought them out. That none of this was accidental. I wanted to see how you were doing, she whispers. After Meredith died, I couldn't stop thinking about you and Emma. I just wanted to make sure you were okay. You wanted to make sure we were okay? Jake's voice cracks with disbelief. So you stalked us? You manipulated your way into our lives? You made my daughter love you, made me love you, all because you felt guilty about murdering my wife. I didn't murder her. Nina's voice breaks on the words. It was an accident. A terrible, horrible accident that I've been living with every day for 2 years. An accident? Jake steps closer to her, and Nina has to fight the urge to back away from the fury in his eyes. Is that what you call it when you're too careless to double-check a medication dose? When you're too lazy to verify an order that could kill someone? I wasn't lazy. Nina is crying now, tears streaming down her face as everything she's been holding inside for 2 years pours out. I was overworked and understaffed and trying to take care of 12 patients at once. The doctor's handwriting was illegible, and I couldn't reach him to clarify, and I was trying to do what I thought was best. What you thought was best, Jake repeats, his voice hollow. My wife is dead because of what you thought was best. The words hang in the air between them like a death sentence, and Nina realizes that nothing she says is going to change anything. The damage is done. The truth is out. And the man she loves is looking at her like she's a stranger. Like she's a monster. Jake, please, she whispers. I know I should have told you. I know I should have. Should have what? Jake's laugh is broken, desperate. Should have mentioned that you killed my wife before I fell in love with you? Should have disclosed your little secret before I let you into my daughter's life. I never meant for it to happen like this. I never meant to fall in love with you. Love. Jake's voice rises again, and Nina realizes with horror that Emma might be able to hear them from upstairs. You call this love? Lying to me for months? Building our entire relationship on a foundation of deception. The feelings were real, Nina pleads. Everything between us, everything with Emma, it was all real. Was it? Jake runs his hands through his hair, and Nina can see him falling apart in real time. How do I know what was real and what was just you trying to ease your guilt? How do I know if you actually care about Emma or if she's just a reminder of the life you destroyed? The accusation hits Nina like a physical blow, because there's a grain of truth in it that she can't deny. Didn't she seek them out because of her guilt? Didn't she stay because taking care of them felt like penance? But somewhere along the way, it became more than that. Somewhere along the way, she fell in love with them both, completely and irreversibly. I love Emma like she's my own daughter, Nina says fiercely. And I love you like I've never loved anyone in my life. That's real, Jake. Whatever else is complicated, that's real. Don't. Jake holds up a hand, and his voice is deadly quiet. Don't you dare talk about loving my daughter. Don't you dare stand in my kitchen and tell me you love the child whose mother you killed. The words are a killing blow, and Nina actually staggers backward, her hand going to her chest as if she can physically hold her heart together. Daddy. Emma's small voice cuts through the tension like a knife, and both adults turn to see her standing in the kitchen doorway, her face pale and confused. What's wrong? Emma asks, looking between Nina and Jake. Why are you yelling? Why is Nina crying? The sight of Emma, innocent, trusting Emma who's been calling Nina Nina Mom, when she thinks no one is listening, breaks something in Nina's chest. Because this little girl is about to lose another mother figure, and it's all Nina's fault. Go back upstairs, sweetheart, Jake says, his voice gentler but still strained. Nina and I we're just talking. But you're not talking, Emma says with the brutal honesty of a 6-year-old. You're fighting. Are you getting divorced like Tommy's parents? The question hangs in the air, and Nina watches Jake's face crumble as he realizes what this is going to do to his daughter. What Nina's presence in their lives has done to all of them. We're not married, Emma, Jake says quietly. And Nina has to go away now. Go away. Emma's voice gets small, scared. Why? Did I do something wrong? No, baby. Jake kneels down to Emma's level, and Nina can see him trying to hold himself together for his daughter's sake. You didn't do anything wrong. Nina she has to leave. But why? Emma runs to Nina, wrapping her small arms around Nina's waist. Nina, you don't want to leave, do you? You said you loved us. You said we were a family. Nina looks down at Emma's trusting face, at the tears starting to gather in her eyes, and feels her heart shatter completely. Because how do you explain to a 6-year-old that the person she's grown to love is the reason her mother is dead? I do love you, Nina whispers, kneeling down to Emma's level. I love you so much, sweetheart. But sometimes grown-ups make mistakes that can't be fixed. What kind of mistakes? Emma asks, and Nina looks helplessly at Jake. The kind that hurt people, Jake says, his voice hollow. Nina made a mistake that hurt our family, and now she has to go. Emma looks between them, trying to understand something that's beyond her comprehension. But can't you forgive her? You always tell me that forgiveness is important. The innocence of the question is devastating, and Nina sees Jake flinch as if he's been struck. Some mistakes are too big for forgiveness, he says quietly. But Emma, go to your room, Jake says, and there's finality in his voice that makes Emma's eyes fill with tears. I don't want Nina to leave, Emma whispers, still clinging to Nina. Please don't make her leave. Nina gently untangles Emma's arms from around her waist, her own tears falling freely now. I have to go, sweetheart. But I want you to remember that I love you, okay? I love you so much, and that will never change. Promise you'll come back? Emma asks desperately. Nina looks at Jake, sees the absolute rejection in his eyes, and knows she'll never see either of them again. I promise I'll always love you, she says instead, because it's the only promise she can keep. Jake picks Emma up, and she buries her face in his shoulder, sobbing. Why does everyone leave? She cries. First Mommy, now Nina. Why does everyone I love go away? The broken question destroys what's left of Nina's composure, and she has to grip the counter to keep from collapsing. Because Emma is right. First her mother, now Nina. This little girl is going to think that loving someone means losing them. And it's all Nina's fault. I'm sorry, Nina whispers, looking at Jake over Emma's head. I'm so sorry for everything. Jake's eyes are wet with tears, but his voice is steady when he speaks. Get out of my house. Get your things and get out, and don't ever come back. Jake. Get out. The words explode from him, raw and desperate, and Emma cries harder. Nina moves toward the hallway on unsteady legs, each step feeling like she's walking through quicksand. In their bedroom, Jake's bedroom, she corrects herself. She throws her belongings into a suitcase with shaking hands. Her toothbrush from the bathroom, her clothes from the dresser, the book she'd been reading on the nightstand. 3 weeks of building a life, packed away in 10 minutes. As she carries her suitcase down the stairs, she can hear Jake in Emma's room, his voice soft and broken as he tries to comfort his daughter. Nina pauses outside Emma's door, listening to him promise that they'll be okay, that they don't need anyone else, that it's just the two of them against the world like it always has been. Like it was before I ruined everything, Nina thinks. She leaves her key on the kitchen counter next to the half-finished pizza they'd been making together. The drawing Emma made of their family is still hanging on the refrigerator, 3 smiling figures holding hands under a bright yellow sun. Nina stares at it for a long moment, memorizing every crayon stroke, before she walks out of the house and out of their lives forever. As she sits in her car in Jake's driveway, engine running but unable to make herself drive away, Nina can see him silhouetted in Emma's bedroom window, holding his daughter as she cries. They look so small up there, so broken, and Nina knows she did this to them. She came into their lives to ease her own guilt, and instead she's caused them more pain than ever. Her phone buzzes with a text from Dr. Martinez. The hospital wants to meet with you Monday morning. The Morrison family's attorney is pushing for disciplinary action. You might want to get a lawyer. Nina stares at the text through her tears and realizes that losing Jake and Emma is just the beginning. She's about to lose her job, her career, maybe even face criminal charges. Everything she's worked for, everything she's built since that terrible night 2 years ago, is crumbling around her. But none of that matters compared to the sight of Jake comforting his daughter in the window above, compared to the knowledge that she'll never see Emma's gap-toothed smile again, never hear Jake laugh at her terrible jokes, never wake up in his arms feeling like she's finally found home. She's lost everything that matters. And she has no one to blame but herself. As Nina finally drives away from the house that had briefly been hers, she can't shake Meredith's last words. Take care of them for me. She'd tried. God help her, she'd tried. But instead of taking care of them, she'd broken their hearts all over again. And this time, there might be no coming back from the damage she's done. Has Nina destroyed any chance of redemption, or do you think Jake might eventually find it in his heart to forgive her? What would you do if you discovered someone you loved had been hiding such a devastating secret? Let me know in the comments. I'm dying to hear your thoughts on whether some betrayals are too big to overcome. Nina doesn't remember driving to the motel on Route 9. One moment she's sitting in Jake's driveway watching him comfort Emma through the bedroom window, and the next she's staring at a flickering neon sign that reads vacancy in sickly pink letters. The parking lot is cracked asphalt and broken dreams, and the room she rents smells like disinfectant and other people's misery. It's perfect. She sits on the edge of the bed for 3 hours without moving, her suitcase at her feet, still wearing the flour-dusted clothes from their aborted pizza night. Her phone buzzes occasionally, texts from colleagues asking if she's okay, a voicemail from her supervisor about Monday's meeting, a missed call from her mother in San Antonio. She ignores them all. The silence is complete, broken only by the distant hum of traffic and the sound of her own breathing. She keeps waiting to cry, to scream, to feel something other than this hollow numbness that settled in her chest like concrete. But nothing comes. She just sits there, staring at the ugly brown carpet, watching the shadows shift as cars pass by the window. This is what shock feels like, she thinks distantly. This is what it's like when your world ends. Sometime around midnight, her phone rings. For a wild, desperate moment, her heart leaps. Maybe it's Jake, maybe he's had time to think, maybe he wants to talk. But when she looks at the screen, it's just Dr. Martinez. She doesn't answer. He calls again 20 minutes later, then texts, Nina, I heard what happened. We need to talk before Monday. Call me. She turns off her phone instead. Sunday passes in a blur of numbness. Nina doesn't shower, doesn't eat, doesn't change clothes. She lies on the motel bed staring at the water-stained ceiling, and her mind replays the scene in Jake's kitchen on an endless loop. The way his face changed when he heard her name. The way Emma cried when Nina said goodbye. The way Jake's voice broke when he told her to get out. Get out of my house. Get your things and get out, and don't ever come back. The words echo in her head until she wants to scream, but the scream won't come. Nothing comes. She's empty, hollowed out, a shell of a person lying in a cheap motel room with nowhere to go and no one to call. Monday morning arrives with cruel inevitability, and Nina forces herself to shower and put on clean clothes for her meeting at the hospital. In the mirror, she looks like a ghost, pale, hollow-eyed, diminished. She can't remember the last time she ate, and her scrubs hang loose on her frame. Good, she thinks. I should look like someone who's falling apart. I should look like someone who's lost everything. The meeting is exactly as devastating as she expected. Dr. Martinez tries to be kind, but the facts are the facts. The Morrison family's attorney has built a compelling case for medical malpractice, and the hospital's legal team has decided that Nina is a liability they can't afford to keep. "We're going to have to let you go," Dr. Martinez says gently, his eyes full of sympathy that Nina doesn't deserve. "I'm sorry, Nina. I know this isn't how you wanted things to end." End. The word echoes in her mind as she cleans out her locker, as she turns in her badge and keycard, as she walks out of Hartford General for the last time. 5 years of her life, gone. Her career, her identity, her purpose, all of it reduced to a cardboard box of personal belongings and a security escort to the parking garage. But none of that matters compared to what she's already lost. The apartment she's been subletting is a studio in a rundown building 20 minutes from the hospital. She's barely spent any time here over the past few weeks. She's been at Jake's house, living the life she thought was hers. Now, surrounded by boxes she never unpacked and furniture she never bothered to arrange, Nina realizes how little she actually has. A few books. Some clothes. A picture of her family from last Christmas. The detritus of a life she's been living in the margins, waiting for something real to begin. Something real. The phrase makes her laugh, but it comes out sounding like a sob. Because what she had with Jake and Emma was real, the most real thing she'd ever experienced. And she threw it away by building it on a lie. The days blur together after that. Nina doesn't look for another job. Who would hire her after what happened? She doesn't call her family. How could she explain why she sounds like a stranger to herself? She doesn't leave the apartment except to buy groceries she doesn't eat and wine she drinks too much of. She exists in a gray space between sleeping and waking, between past and present, between the life she had and the life she's lost. Sometimes she catches herself reaching for her phone to text Jake about something funny she saw, or to ask him what he wants for dinner. Sometimes she wakes up expecting to hear Emma's laughter from the kitchen. The cruelest moments are when she forgets, just for an instant, that it's over. When she thinks about the family plans they were making, the future they were building, the way Jake looked at her when he said he was falling in love with her. Then she remembers, and the pain hits her fresh every time. "You killed his wife," she tells herself during the long sleepless nights. "You took Emma's mother away. You don't deserve happiness. You don't deserve love. You don't deserve anything." 2 weeks into her exile, the anger finally comes. It starts as a low simmer while she's standing in line at the grocery store, watching a couple argue about yogurt brands while their toddler whines in the cart. Such a normal, mundane scene, such an ordinary Tuesday morning problem. And Nina finds herself furious at their ordinariness, at their ability to worry about yogurt when her entire world has collapsed. "You don't know how lucky you are," she wants to scream at them. "You don't know how fast it can all disappear." But she doesn't scream. She pays for her wine and frozen dinners and goes home to her empty apartment, where the anger builds and builds until she can't contain it anymore. She throws a coffee mug at the wall, and it shatters with a satisfying crash. Then she throws another one, and another, until her small collection of dishes is reduced to ceramic shards scattered across the kitchen floor. Fuck. She screams at the silence, at the unfairness of it all, at the universe that let her fall in love with a man whose wife she killed. Fuck, fuck, fuck. She screams until her voice gives out, until her throat is raw and her chest is heaving, until she collapses on her couch and finally starts to cry. She cries for Meredith, who never got to see her daughter grow up. She cries for Emma, who's lost another mother figure. She cries for Jake, who trusted her with his heart and his child only to have that trust shattered. She cries for herself, for the life she thought she was building, for the love she'll never have again. She cries until there are no tears left, until she's empty and hollow and exhausted. And then she starts bargaining. Maybe if I write him a letter, she thinks. Maybe if I explain everything, if I tell him about that night, about how I've been carrying this guilt for 2 years, maybe he'll understand. She writes 17 different letters over the next week, each one more desperate than the last. She tries to explain the chaos of that night, the impossible decisions she was forced to make, the weight of responsibility she's been carrying. She tries to make him understand that she never meant to hurt anyone, that her love for him and Emma is real despite everything else. But every letter sounds like justification, like excuses, like someone trying to absolve themselves of the unforgivable. She tears them all up. Maybe if I talk to Emma, she thinks next. Maybe if I explain it in a way she can understand, she can help Jake see that I'm not a monster. But the thought of using a 6-year-old as a mediator makes her sick. Emma has been through enough. She doesn't need to be caught in the middle of adult complications she can't possibly understand. Maybe if I give it time, Nina tells herself. Maybe if I stay away long enough, Jake will realize that he misses me. That what we had was worth fighting for. But even as she thinks it, she knows it's not true. Some betrayals are too deep, some lies too fundamental. She's not coming back from this. The depression hits her like a freight train 3 weeks after that terrible Friday night. Nina stops getting dressed, stops showering, stops pretending that she's going to get better. She lies in bed for days at a time, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of life continuing outside her window. People go to work. Children play in the courtyard. Life moves forward, indifferent to her suffering. Her phone has been dead for days, but she doesn't bother to charge it. Her family is probably worried. She hasn't returned their calls in weeks, but she can't face their concern, their questions, their well-meaning advice. How could she explain that she destroyed her own happiness? That she had everything she ever wanted and threw it away? The lowest point comes on a Thursday afternoon when she finds herself standing in the grocery store, staring at the baby food aisle, remembering how Emma used to help her shop for ingredients to make dinner. A woman with a little girl about Emma's age walks past, and the girl is chattering excitedly about something that happened at school. And then Mrs. Peterson said I was the best reader in the whole class, the little girl announces, beaming up at her mother. That's wonderful, sweetheart, the mother says, smiling down at her daughter with obvious pride. It's such a simple moment, but it breaks something in Nina that was barely holding together. She abandons her cart right there in the aisle and drives home through tears that blur her vision. At home, she climbs into bed and pulls the covers over her head, and for the first time since this all began, she wonders if it would be easier to just stop. To stop fighting, stop hurting, stop carrying this weight that's crushing her from the inside out. The thought scares her enough to make her get up, to make her call the crisis hotline and talk to a volunteer who listens without judgment as Nina cries into the phone. What's keeping you going? The volunteer asks gently. What's worth fighting for? Nina almost hangs up, because the honest answer is nothing. There's nothing worth fighting for anymore. No job, no love, no future that doesn't involve living with the knowledge that she destroyed an innocent family. But then she thinks about Meredith's last words. Take care of them for me. I failed, Nina thinks. I failed spectacularly. But maybe there's still something I can do. I don't know, she tells the volunteer. But maybe that's okay. Maybe not knowing is enough for now. After she hangs up, Nina sits on the edge of her bed and really looks at her life for the first time in weeks. The apartment is a disaster. Clothes everywhere, dishes piled in the sink, the broken coffee mugs still scattered across the kitchen floor. She looks like a disaster too, unwashed hair, stained pajamas, hollow eyes in a too thin face. This isn't taking care of anyone, she realizes. This isn't what Meredith meant. Maybe she can't have Jake and Emma back. Maybe she's lost that forever. But wallowing in self-pity isn't helping anyone, least of all them. Slowly, carefully, Nina gets up and starts cleaning. She sweeps up the broken dishes, does the laundry, takes a shower that feels like washing away weeks of despair. She charges her phone and listens to the accumulated voicemails. Her mother, worried sick, Dr. Martinez, checking on her, a lawyer, wanting to discuss her options. She calls her mother first. Mija. Her mother's voice is thick with relief and worry. Where have you been? I've been calling and calling. I'm sorry, Mama, Nina says, and her voice sounds strange to her own ears, rusty from disuse, fragile like spun glass. I've been going through something. Are you okay? Do you need me to come up there? The offer is tempting, to let her mother fly up from San Antonio, to be taken care of like a child, to hand over the responsibility of figuring out her life to someone else. But Nina is done running away from her problems. I'm okay, she says, and for the first time in weeks, she almost means it. I'm going to be okay. After she hangs up with her mother, Nina sits at her kitchen table and makes a list. Not of things she's lost, she could write a novel about that. But of things she can still do. Small things. Practical things. Things that might not fix everything, but might make tomorrow slightly better than today. Find a lawyer. Look for a new job, maybe not nursing, but something. Figure out how to live with herself. Find a way to honor Meredith's memory that doesn't involve destroying her family. It's not much of a plan, but it's a start. And for the first time since that terrible Friday night, Nina feels something other than despair. She feels determined. Maybe she can't have the life she wanted. Maybe she'll never love anyone the way she loved Jake, never be part of a family the way she was with him and Emma. Maybe she'll spend the rest of her life carrying the weight of what she's done. But she can survive it. She can find a way to live with it, to build something meaningful from the wreckage of her mistakes. As she sits in her quiet apartment, making plans for a future she never wanted but is determined to face, Nina thinks about Meredith Morrison, the woman whose life she accidentally took, whose family she inadvertently destroyed twice over. I'm sorry, she thinks. I'm so sorry for all of it. But I'm not giving up. I'm going to find a way to make this right, even if it takes the rest of my life. It's not redemption, not yet. But it's the first step on a very long road. And for now, that's enough. Have you ever had to rebuild your life from rock bottom? What do you think Nina should do next? Fight for Jake's forgiveness, or accept that some mistakes can't be undone? Drop a comment and let me know what you think her path to redemption should look like. 6 months later, Nina stands outside the Hartford County Courthouse, clutching a manila folder that contains everything she spent the last half-year fighting for. The late October air is crisp with the promise of winter, and the trees lining the street are ablaze with gold and crimson, the kind of fall day that used to make her think of apple cider and cozy evenings with Jake and Emma. She doesn't let herself think about that now. Today isn't about what she's lost. Today is about what she can still give. The lawyer walking beside her, Patricia Chun, a sharp-eyed woman who took Nina's case pro bono after hearing her story, adjusts her briefcase and gives Nina an encouraging nod. You ready for this? Patricia asks. Nina takes a deep breath, thinking about the journey that brought her here. The months of therapy, learning to live with her guilt without letting it destroy her. The minimum wage job at a veterinary clinic that barely pays her bills but gives her a sense of purpose again. The slow, painful process of rebuilding herself from the ground up. Most importantly, the investigation she's been conducting on her own time, digging through medical records, tracking down witnesses, uncovering the truth about what really happened the night Meredith Morrison died. I'm ready, Nina says, and means it. Inside the courthouse, Jake is sitting at a conference table with his own attorney, a silver-haired man in an expensive suit who's been pushing for maximum damages in the malpractice case. Jake looks older than he did 6 months ago, thinner, with new lines around his eyes that speak of sleepless nights and ongoing grief. When Nina walks into the room, Jake's entire body goes rigid. She can see his hands clench into fists on the table, can see the way his jaw tightens as he forces himself not to look away. Mr. Morrison, Patricia says professionally, thank you for agreeing to this meeting. I'm only here because my attorney insisted, Jake says, his voice cold and flat. I have nothing to say to her. Her. Not Nina. Not even her name. Just her, like she's too toxic to be addressed directly. Nina expected this, prepared for it, but it still hits like a physical blow. 6 months ago, this man held her while she slept, kissed her forehead when she woke up, told her he was falling in love with her. Now he can't even say her name. Mr. Morrison, Patricia continues, my client has some information about your wife's case that you need to hear. Information that could change everything. Jake's attorney, Robert Steinberg, according to the nameplate in front of him, leans forward with interest. What kind of information? Patricia nods to Nina, who opens her manila folder with hands that are surprisingly steady. She's rehearsed this moment 100 times, but now that it's here, she feels calm. Clear. For the first time in 6 months, she knows exactly what she needs to do. The night your wife died, Nina says, addressing Jake directly even though he's staring at the table, I made a medication error. That's true. But it wasn't the error that killed her. Jake's head snaps up, his eyes blazing with anger. Don't you dare. Let her finish, Patricia says firmly. Nina pulls out a thick stack of papers, medical records, lab reports, witness statements, and places them on the table. I've spent the last 6 months investigating what really happened that night. Not to absolve myself of responsibility, but to understand the full truth. She slides the first document across the table to Jake. This is the autopsy report. The real one, not the preliminary report that was used in the initial investigation. Jake's attorney picks up the document, his eyes scanning the pages with professional efficiency. Nina watches his expression change from skepticism to surprise to something that looks like shock. According to this, Steinberg says slowly, the cause of death was massive internal bleeding from a previously undiagnosed aneurysm. Not cardiac arrest from medication error. That's right, Nina says, her voice growing stronger. The medication error caused a brief arrhythmia, but Meredith's heart corrected itself within minutes. The aneurysm rupture happened 3 hours later and was completely unrelated to anything I did. Jake is staring at the papers now, his face pale. That's not what they told me. They said she died from cardiac arrest. They said your mistake. My mistake didn't help, Nina interrupts. It caused her distress, it caused complications that made her last few hours more difficult than they should have been. But it didn't kill her. She pulls out another document, a thick folder of medical records. I also discovered that Meredith had been showing symptoms of the aneurysm for weeks before she died. Headaches, vision problems, dizziness. But everyone attributed them to the cancer treatment. I remember the headaches, Jake whispers, his voice broken. She kept saying they were getting worse, but the oncologist said it was normal. It should have been caught, Nina says gently. If someone had ordered a CT scan, if someone had looked beyond the cancer diagnosis, they might have found it in time. But no one did. And that's not your fault, and it's not mine. Sometimes medicine fails. Sometimes people die despite everyone's best efforts. Jake is quiet for a long moment, processing this information. When he finally looks up at Nina, there's something different in his eyes. Not forgiveness, not yet, but a crack in the wall of hatred he's built around himself. Why are you telling me this? He asks. Why now? Nina takes a deep breath, preparing for the hardest part. Because there's more. She pulls out the last document in her folder, a letter written in shaky handwriting on Hartford General letterhead. This is from Dr. Marcus Webb, the attending physician that night. He's retired now, but he contacted me after hearing about the investigation. Nina's voice wavers slightly. He wanted me to know that the medication order was illegible because he was having mini-strokes that were affecting his fine motor control. He was hiding his condition because he was afraid of losing his license. Jake's attorney snatches the letter, reading it quickly. He's admitting that the prescription was unclear, that Ms. Rodriguez couldn't reasonably have been expected to interpret it correctly. More than that, Nina says. He's admitting that he knew the order was unclear when he wrote it, but he was too proud to ask for help. He's also admitting that when I tried to call him for clarification, he was in the middle of another episode and couldn't take the call. The room falls silent as the implications sink in. Jake stares at Nina with an expression she can't read. So you're saying... Jake starts, then stops. You're saying none of it was your fault. No, Nina says firmly. I'm saying it was everyone's fault. And no one's fault. I'm saying that sometimes terrible things happen despite everyone's best intentions, and looking for someone to blame doesn't bring back the people we've lost. She leans forward, her eyes locked on Jake's. I spent 2 years carrying the guilt of thinking I killed your wife. And you've spent 6 months hating me for it. But the truth is, Meredith was going to die that night no matter what any of us did. The aneurysm was already rupturing. The cancer was already winning. We were all just trying to help her hold on a little longer. Jake's face crumbles, and Nina can see him reliving that night from a new perspective. All the anger he's been carrying, all the blame he's been placing on her, it's shifting, reshaping itself into something more complicated. But you lied to me, he says, his voice barely above a whisper. You came into our lives and you lied about who you were. Yes, Nina says simply. I did. And that was wrong, no matter what my reasons were. She stands up, facing Jake across the table, and for the first time in 6 months, she feels like herself again. Not the broken woman who fled his house in tears, not the ghost who's been haunting Hartford for months, but the person she was before guilt consumed her. I lied because I was carrying a secret that was eating me alive, she continues. I lied because I thought I was protecting you from more pain. But mostly, I lied because I was a coward. Jake's attorney starts to object, probably thinking she's damaging her legal position, but Nina holds up a hand. I'm not done, she says, her voice ringing with newfound strength. Yes, I lied about who I was. But everything else, everything between us, was real. The way I felt about you, the way I loved Emma, the life we built together, that was all real. She turns to address Jake directly, no longer caring about lawyers or legal consequences or anything except the need to speak her truth. I fell in love with you, Jake Morrison. Not because I felt guilty about your wife, not because I was trying to ease my conscience, but because you are a good man who loves his daughter and makes the world a better place just by being in it. I fell in love with Emma because she's brilliant and funny and brave, and because she has the biggest heart of anyone I've ever met. Tears are streaming down Nina's face now, but her voice is steady. I know you can't forgive me for lying. I know you can't trust me again. But I need you to know that loving you and Emma was the most real thing I've ever experienced in my life. Jake is crying now too, his carefully constructed walls finally crumbling. Nina. I'm not telling you this because I want you back, Nina continues, her voice gentle but firm. I'm telling you this because you deserve to know the truth. All of it. The messy, complicated, heartbreaking truth. She sits back down, suddenly exhausted but also lighter than she's felt in months. Meredith asked me to take care of you, she says quietly. In her final moments, she grabbed my hand and asked me to take care of you and Emma. I thought that meant inserting myself into your lives, becoming part of your family. But I was wrong. Nina looks at Jake, sees the pain and confusion and maybe, just maybe, the beginning of understanding in his eyes. Taking care of you means telling you the truth, even when it hurts. It means giving you the information you need to heal, even if it costs me everything. It means letting you go, if that's what's best for you and Emma. The room is silent except for the sound of quiet crying. Jake's attorney is shuffling papers, trying to process the legal implications of everything that's been revealed. Patricia is watching Nina with something that looks like pride. But Nina only has eyes for Jake, for this man she loves and has lost and will probably never have again. I'm sorry, she whispers. I'm sorry for the lie, I'm sorry for the pain, I'm sorry for all of it. But I'm not sorry for loving you. I'll never be sorry for that. Jake stares at her for a long moment, and Nina can see him struggling with emotions too complex to name. Finally, he speaks. The night you left, he says, his voice rough with tears, Emma cried for 3 hours. She kept asking when you were coming back, and I kept telling her you weren't. But she didn't understand why. Nina's heart breaks all over again. How is she? Angry. Sad. Confused. Jake wipes his eyes with the back of his hand. She keeps asking what she did wrong, why everyone she loves leaves her. She didn't do anything wrong, Nina says fiercely. She's perfect. She's the most perfect little girl in the world. I know that, Jake says. But she doesn't. She thinks she's cursed or something. She thinks people leave because she's not good enough to make them stay. The words hit Nina like physical blows, because she knows she's partly responsible for Emma feeling that way. Another person who promised to love her, then disappeared from her life. Jake, Nina says carefully, I know you have no reason to trust me, but, can I ask you something? Jake nods warily. What if this isn't about me and you? What if this is about Emma? Jake's brow furrows. What do you mean? Nina takes a deep breath, knowing she's about to take the biggest risk of her life. What if we found a way for me to explain things to her? Age appropriately, carefully, with you there the whole time? What if we helped her understand that sometimes adults make mistakes that have big consequences, but that doesn't mean she's not worthy of love? Absolutely not, Jake says immediately. I'm not putting my daughter through that. You're already putting her through it, Nina says gently. She's already hurting. She's already confused. The question is whether we help her understand or leave her to figure it out on her own. Jake's attorney leans forward. Mr. Morrison, I have to advise you that any contact between you and Ms. Rodriguez could complicate the legal proceedings. Fuck the legal proceedings, Jake says suddenly, and both attorneys look shocked. This isn't about money. This never was about money. He looks at Nina, really looks at her, for the first time since she walked into the room. You look different, he says. I am different, Nina replies. 6 months of therapy will do that to a person. Good different or bad different? Nina considers the question. Honest different. I'm done lying, Jake. To you, to myself, to everyone. I'm done carrying secrets that poison everything they touch. Jake is quiet for a long moment, studying her face. If I let you talk to Emma, what would you say to her? The truth, Nina says without hesitation. That I made a mistake that hurt people I cared about. That I was scared to tell the truth because I thought it would hurt more people. That sometimes adults mess up really badly, but that doesn't mean children are responsible for fixing it. She pauses, then adds, and that I love her. That I will always love her, no matter what happens between us. Jake closes his eyes, and Nina can see him warring with himself. She waits, not pushing, not pleading, just giving him space to make his decision. Finally, he opens his eyes and looks at her. One conversation. With me there the whole time. And if she gets upset, if it's too much for her, it stops immediately. Of course, Nina says, her heart hammering with hope and terror. And after that. Jake's voice trails off. After that, I walk away, Nina finishes for him. I give you and Emma space to heal. I don't contact you, don't try to insert myself back into your lives. I let you both move on. And what about you? Jake asks quietly. What do you do? Nina smiles, and for the first time in months, it feels genuine. I keep living. I keep trying to be better than I was yesterday. I keep looking for ways to help people instead of hurt them. She stands up, gathering her papers. I've been accepted to a social work program at UConn. I start in January. I want to work with families who are dealing with medical trauma, help them navigate systems that can be overwhelming. Jake's eyebrows rise in surprise. That's really good, Nina. It's what I should have done from the beginning, Nina says. Instead of letting guilt drive me to make more mistakes, I should have found a way to turn my experience into something helpful. As they finalize the details for Nina's conversation with Emma, Nina feels something she hasn't experienced in months: peace. Not the peace of getting what she wants, but the peace of doing what's right. She may never have Jake back. She may never be Emma's Nina mom again. But she's given them the truth, and the truth, however painful, is what sets people free. As she walks out of the courthouse, Nina thinks about Meredith Morrison one last time. About a dying woman who trusted a stranger to take care of the people she loved most. I think I'm finally starting to understand what you meant, Nina thinks. Taking care of them doesn't mean becoming part of their family. It means making sure they have what they need to heal. 2 weeks later, Nina sits in Jake's living room, the same living room where they used to watch movies together, where Emma used to fall asleep between them on the couch. But everything is different now. The photo of Meredith has been moved to a more prominent place on the mantel. Emma's latest drawings are displayed on the refrigerator, but none of them include Nina. Emma sits on the couch between Nina and Jake, her small hands folded in her lap, her expression serious and wary. "Hi, sweetheart," Nina says softly. "Hi," Emma replies, not quite meeting her eyes. For the next hour, Nina explains, in careful age-appropriate language, why she had to leave. She talks about mistakes and consequences, about how sometimes adults make choices that hurt people even when they don't mean to. She answers Emma's questions honestly, never making excuses, never placing blame. "So you didn't leave because of me?" Emma asks, her voice small. "Oh, sweetheart, no," Nina says, her heart breaking. "I left because of choices I made. You are perfect exactly as you are, and anyone who gets to love you is the luckiest person in the world." "But you're not coming back," Emma says matter-of-factly. Nina glances at Jake, who nods slightly. "No, sweetheart. I'm not coming back. Because Daddy doesn't want you to?" "Because sometimes love isn't enough to fix the hurt we've caused," Nina says gently. "Sometimes the most loving thing we can do is give people space to heal." Emma considers this with the serious concentration of a child, trying to understand the incomprehensible adult world. "I'm still mad at you," she says finally. "That's okay," Nina says. "You have every right to be mad. I hope someday you won't be anymore, but if you are, that's okay too." "I missed you," Emma whispers. "I missed you too," Nina says, tears streaming down her face. "Every single day." When it's time to leave, Emma surprises everyone by giving Nina a hug. It's brief, tentative, but it's real. "I love you, Nina," Emma says quietly. "I love you too, Emma Bear," Nina replies, using the nickname she gave her months ago. "I always will." As Nina walks to her car, Jake follows her onto the porch. "Thank you," he says simply. "For what?" "For telling her the truth. For helping her understand that she's not responsible for the adults in her life making hard choices." They stand in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the sun set over the neighborhood where Nina used to live. "I loved you," Jake says quietly. "I need you to know that. Whatever else happened, whatever lies were told, I loved you." "I know," Nina says. "I loved you too. I still do. Maybe." Jake starts, then stops. "Maybe in another life, where we met differently." "Maybe," Nina agrees. "But this is the life we have. And I think we're both going to be okay in it." As Nina drives away from Jake's house for the final time, she doesn't look back. She's done looking backward, done living in the past, done letting guilt and regret define her future. She has a life to build, a different life than the one she dreamed of, but a good life nonetheless. A life of service, of helping others, of using her experience to make the world a little bit better. And somewhere in Connecticut, a little girl is learning that people can leave without it being her fault, and a man is learning that some kinds of love transcend the circumstances that create them. It's not the ending any of them would have chosen, but it's an ending that allows everyone to heal. And sometimes, healing is the most love we can offer each other. What do you think about Nina's choice to prioritize Emma's healing over her own desires? Do you believe people can find redemption even when they can't have the life they wanted? Share your thoughts on what true love really means. I'd love to hear how this story resonated with you in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.